Hello and welcome to another Honkai Star Rail video. Version 2.4 is coming up with 2 brand new 5 stars as well as 2 rerun 5-star characters as well. In this video we're going to be going over what value each character can bring and should you pull for them depending on what state your account might be in. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so the first character I'm going to go over is the brand new 5-star physical destruction character Yunli. Yunli's kit is pretty much almost identical to Clara's. You could consider her Clara 2.0. So how her kit works is her skill heals herself and also deals blast damage to 3 enemies. Her talent is just the same as Clara's, where whenever she's attacked, she launches a counter attack. Her ultimate does an AoE taunt and also it enters into the parry state where the counters from her talent become enhanced counters and deal increased damage. When you use a technique and you get attacked, she blocks the attack, enters the battle and immediately hits the enemy with an enhanced counter attack. The same enhanced counter you'd get after you use her ultimate. So basically she works almost identical to Clara's. With counterattacks and stuff, she is a very versatile DPS character and will pretty much do well in all of the current endgame content that exists and can be put in a lot of different team comps. So if your account is lacking DPS characters and you need a good DPS, then by all means she's a good one. But if you already have a sufficient amount of DPS characters to the point where you're able to clear pretty much all of the endgame content, then you don't really need to pull for it. Okay, the next character I'm going to cover is going to be Huo Huo, who is also having a rerun in the first half beside Yunli's banner. Huo Huo is a premium sustain and probably the best cleanser in the game right now. She's also very good at healing and sustaining your team. She's also a pseudo harmony character because she does provide energy and an attack buff with her ult. The main thing about her is that she is a very good sustain. So whether or not you should pull for her, well, it depends on your account. If you have 2 or more limited sustains like Aventuring, Lucha, etc., then you don't need her. But if you are lacking sustains, like if you have 1 or even no limited sustains, then I would highly recommend getting her. If you have 1 limited sustain, then you could consider waiting until 2.5, where we were drip marketed that Fire Abundance 5-star character that is coming out. So if you have 1 limited sustain, you could wait until 2.5 if you want and not get Huo Huo. But if you have like no limited sustains, then I would recommend picking her up. Alright, so the next character is the new 5-star Nihility character Jiaoqiu, who's coming up in the second half. Jiaoqiu is basically a dot plus debuff character. He's basically built to be like a premium support for Acheron specifically. His skill deals damage to 3 enemies and applies the Ashen Roast debuff, which is basically a vulnerability multiplier that makes the enemy take more damage. His ultimate creates a field that deals damage and also gives the enemy's ultimate damage vulnerability as well as Ashen Roast debuff. His talent makes it so that the Ashen Roast and vulnerability debuff also count as burn. His technique creates a dimension that applies fire damage to all enemies, applies the Ashen Roast debuff. The way I see it, he's kind of like a 5-star version of Gunaifen, but yeah, he's basically just made for as a premium support for Acheron. But if you have like Black Swan or even Silver Wolf, I'd say, then you probably don't need him. Like Acheron even works great with 4-star supports like Gunaifen and Pella. So if you want an upgrade for your Acheron team, I guess you could get him. But other than that, there is no real point in getting him. Alright, so the next character on the list is Sparkle, who's getting a rerun in the second half alongside Jiaoqiu. Sparkle is probably one of the better supports. She does provide damage buff as well as action advance forward, and not to mention she provides extra skill points. She makes it so that your skill point cap goes from 5 to 7 whenever she's on the team, and her ultimate just restores 4 skill points, and she's extremely good, especially if you have like Imbibita Lune. She synergizes exceptionally well with him. She's useful in almost every hyper carry team, So yeah, as for whether or not you should get Sparkle, it depends on what type of teams you run. If you run hyper carry teams, and especially if you have like an embedded Lune, then by all means, yeah, she's definitely worth pulling for. However, if you are mostly reliant on follow-up attack teams, dot coms, or even break teams, which is the current meta right now, then yeah, she's not very useful in those teams. She's only good for hyper carry teams. So if you are running hyper carry teams, and especially if you like running an inhibitor Lune hyper carry team, then yeah, she is very valuable in those. She can also be useful in like a hyper carry Acheron team, but only if Acheron is E2, because otherwise Acheron needs 2 nihility characters in a team to fully utilize her talents. So you either need Acheron at E2 or you need sustainless Acheron team comp in order to utilize her with Acheron. So in conclusion, we have Yunli, who's a pretty flexible DPS, basically Clara 2.0, and if you are in need of a DPS character, then by all means she's definitely going to be a good option to pull for. As for Huo Huo, she's also a very good sustain, and if you do not have 2 or more limited sustains, then I would suggest getting her, unless you want to wait for 2.5 where we're gonna get another abundance character. But either way, she's a good pull if you need a sustain. But if you have 2 or more sustains, then yeah, she's definitely skippable. As for Jiaoqiu, he's not really needed. He's not very valuable at all. The only value he provides is maybe buffing up your Acheron team, and only buffing up your Acheron team. And even then, if you have like Black Swan or even Silver Wolf and stuff, I don't think he's gonna increase the damage that much. So I don't think he's gonna bring it too much value, and is probably not really worth pulling. As for Sparkle, yeah, if you're running a hyper carry team, especially if you're running an Imbibitor Lune team, or if you have an Imbibitor Lune you want to use, then she is a very good support character to pull, but otherwise not so much, especially if you're like running follow-up attack, dart and break teams, which are prevalent in the current meta. So yeah, that's pretty much my opinion on the 2.4 banners. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video or found this useful, then please leave a like. Also leave a comment giving me your opinion as to who you're pulling for, or if you're skipping, and subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future content. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this one. See you all in the next one.